All right, so today is Mother's Day, and as I mentioned earlier, I think it's good and right that we celebrate and recognize and appreciate moms, because moms are really cool. You know, moms are also just very interesting people. And you know, I look back at my own mom, and this is absolutely true. According to my mother, there were only 3 ways a person could get hurt. You could break your neck. Like, get out of that tree, you're going to break your neck. And so we'd have to climb out of the tree so we wouldn't break our neck. Or we could catch pneumonia and, put a coat on or come out of the cold, you'll catch pneumonia. Or you could put somebody's eye out. Those were like the 3 things, like if I was shooting rubber bands at my sister, which, I don't know why they would tell me to stop doing that, but it was, don't do that because you'll put somebody's eye out. And the interesting thing about that is I can't remember a single time when myself, my siblings, or any of my friends ever had any of those things happen to them. I never remember a single person breaking their neck, catching pneumonia, putting someone's eye out, or anything like that. More often than not, we might scrape our knee. We might catch a cold, we might break our arm, but it was never, hey, don't do that, you're going to scrape your knee. No, it's you're going to break your neck. And, so again, moms are very interesting. And moms evolve and grow as well. And they do so, again, in some very interesting ways. And I've seen this, even in my own house. Like, for example, before a woman has her first baby, the couple, they go to the classes, the birthing classes, and they practice breathing. And so there's all this breathing practice, before the first baby. By the second baby, mom isn't even thinking about breathing because she realizes that it didn't do any good the first time. And, she just breathed as she always breathed. And then, like, by the third baby, she's, in her 8th month, she's asking for an epidural. And, when a woman, like my wife did this, I'll say this on the first one. For the first baby, as soon as the woman finds out she's pregnant, she's wearing maternity clothes because she wants everybody to know. And she's got that glow, that new mom glow. And then by the second baby, that new mom glow's done, and she is, trying to wear her regular clothes as long as possible. By the third baby, the maternity clothes are her regular clothes. Yeah. Or how about the pacifiers? A pacifier falls on the ground. New mom, she's got a hazmat suit. She's dropping it with tongs into this jar with a little symbol on it, takes it home, sterilizes it, goes through this whole industrial process. By the second baby, she's squirting it with whatever's in the bottle, wiping it off, popping it back in. By the third baby, she's, putting it under her armpit, wiping it on her shirt, and putting it back in. Or like moms with the first baby, changing diapers. They change that diaper every hour on the hour, whether the baby needs it or not. Second baby, every 2 to 3 hours if needed. Third baby, they're changing that diaper when people begin to complain about the smell. And the diaper's sagging around the knees and stuff like that. And it's fun. It's fun to poke fun at moms because moms are interesting and moms are cool. And I think celebrating moms is a really good thing. And the Bible celebrates moms. In fact, Proverbs 31 talks about the noble woman. And in the noble woman, there's a lot in there about motherhood. And we read, for example, in verses 26 to 28, she speaks with wisdom, and faithful instruction is on her tongue. She watches over the affairs of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children arise and call her blessed. And so the first thing we see from this passage about good mothers, we're going to talk about good mothers today. And, hopefully the Bible has some advice for moms out there. And for those of us to encourage our moms and recognize those who are good mothers. And so the first thing we learn about mothers from this, or good mothers, is that a good mother guides her children with wisdom. And, if you just listen to your mom, you can learn so much about life. But you just have to know how to listen. For example, moms teach us about logic. Because I said so, that's why. They teach us about foresight. Make sure you wear clean underwear in case you're in an accident. I've never understood that, but my mom used to say that to me. She really did. So I learned about foresight and planning ahead. They teach us about irony. Keep crying and I'll give you something to cry about. They teach us about osmosis. Shut your mouth and eat your supper. They teach us about stamina. You're going to sit there until all that spinach is gone. They teach us about the weather. This room looks like a tornado went through it. They teach us about hypocrisy. If I've told you once, I've told you 1,000,000 times. Do not exaggerate. They teach us about the circle of life. I brought you into this world. And I can take you out. They teach us about behavior modification. Stop acting like your father. They teach us about envy. There are millions of less fortunate children in the world who do not have wonderful parents like you. They teach us about anticipation. Just wait until your father gets home. They teach us about medical science. If you don't stop crossing your eyes, they're going to freeze that way. They teach us about wisdom. When you get to be my age, you'll understand. And finally, they teach us about justice. One day, I hope you have kids, and they turn out exactly like you. Mothers are indeed very wise, and we can learn a lot from mothers. And again, we have a good time poking fun at mothers, but the text does say that she speaks with wisdom. And again, it's talking about good moms. She speaks with wisdom, and faithful instruction is on her tongue. And it really is true. Like in my own family, sometimes my children need guidance, and occasionally they will come to me for advice. Much more often, they're seeking out Cindy for advice. She's the one who gets those texts and those calls, and I don't feel bad about that because she's the mom, and moms are available in a different way than dads are, and they relate to the kids in a different way, and I think it has a lot to do with the fact that women in general tend to be far more nurturing and relational, and I think that motherhood brings out the best of these qualities in women. And so women speak from a perspective, or moms speak from a perspective that oftentimes, dad just doesn't have. And so I guess that part of this text is, children, listen to your mothers because, they love you and they want what's best for you. And not everyone can say that out in the world, or you can't say that about everyone out there because most people are not necessarily looking out for you. They're looking out for themselves, or they have an angle. And I know that sounds cynical, but the point I'm trying to make is you can trust moms because they speak from a pure heart. But really, I think the primary thing that we glean from this passage is the idea of moms, give wise counsel to your children. Don't be afraid to give them advice. And I know that this gets a little touchy as kids grow and get older, especially like with adult children. But there are subtle ways that you can communicate, that you are available and approachable. Don't make the mistake of being too passive. I've sat around with friends many times and had a very similar conversation. And the conversation goes like this. I really wish that my parents or our parents, so we're all agreeing, told us about this. Why didn't they tell us about, finances? Why didn't they tell us about relationships or these dynamics? And or why didn't they tell us about, these things that maybe having to do with spirituality? And the reason they didn't is maybe they felt, it wasn't any of their business, or they didn't want to be pushy, or maybe the kids, are giving off those nonverbal clues that we don't want to talk about this. But the truth is, I think all of us have thought that at one time or another. Why didn't my parents tell me about X or Y or Z or, these other important things in life? And we want that. We genuinely want guidance from our parents. And I think it starts, for moms, with the simple things, all the stuff about breaking your neck and, catching pneumonia and all. I mean, that's good stuff, really. Don't put your finger in the light socket. Moms are there to guide us. They're there to help us. And then as you grow older, and as children grow older, their needs change, and there's other types of counsel and other types of advice that you can give. And I think that the most valuable of all of that is what George read at the beginning of the service, where you have Eunice, and she's teaching Timothy, and she's guiding Timothy. And now Timothy is a pastor. And Paul is recognizing the role that his mom played in that. And it doesn't directly say, but you read between the lines, and you see there's some open lines of communication there. There's a relationship there that's powerful. There's trust. There's care, there's love, there's nurture, and there's this incredible desire and this incredible passion to pass on what she knows about the most important subject in life, and that is a relationship with the Lord. And so there's Eunice, practicing this principle here in Proverbs, about offering wise counsel. She speaks with wisdom, and faithful instruction is on her lips. And again, what instruction is that? I think the most important instruction is how to have that healthy relationship with God. As parents, we're responsible for that. We like to advocate that and give it over to the church and wash our hands. And the church has a role to play, but as parents, we have the biggest role to play. And it's very important that we do that. And so, good mothers guide their children with wisdom. Good mothers also serve their children with diligence. And the passage says, she watches over the affairs of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. And a good mother watches over her family, works hard, and does what it takes to ensure that they prosper. And and I really believe that my own mom, so I'll brag on my own mom here a little bit, that she was a really great example in this area. My dad was a machinist at a government shipyard. So he never made a lot of money. And so growing up, the entire time my mom drove a school bus, and at times when needed, she would also waitress at night, mostly at the local IHOP that we had in town. And so she would waitress over there. And I remember when I was about 10 or 11 years old, because I knew that some of my friends, and we lived in a neighborhood where most of the women probably did work, but some of their moms stayed home. And so I was curious, and I asked my mom, I said, Mom, why do you do that? Why do you drive that bus? Why do you wait those tables? And she said, because we want you kids to have things that we didn't have. We want you to have the good things in life. And she mentioned things like school clothes, Christmas presents, and she said, if I didn't work, we wouldn't be able to have these things. And she never once complained, but I asked. And looking back on my life and my childhood, we didn't have a lot. But here's the thing, we always had enough. And we never went without. And I now realize that was in large part because of my mom. In fact, I remember one time that my dad was laid off. It was the only time he was ever laid off. I guess things were slow at the shipyard, and they didn't need him. It was for about a 6-month period of time. And my mom took extra shifts, and she worked nights, and she did everything that she possibly could do to stretch that budget. And the one thing I remember, I was about 9 or 10 at this time, and I still have very vivid memories that we only had meat for dinner once a week because we couldn't afford to have meat. That was like a big celebration. It was usually like Friday night or Saturday or something. We would have meat. But my mom always worked so hard to make all those other meals appetizing and exciting, and she would try and build it up, like, hey, kids, we're having cheese sandwiches tonight, and we'd all get really excited over these cheese sandwiches, or we're going to have macaroni and cheese, and those little Kraft boxes were about 10 cents, back in the 70s, and that's what we would have, or hamburger helper with no hamburger, it's like, all right, this is really good, and I never remember that being a bad thing. I remember looking forward to dinner just as much as I always did, and that's because my mom, she's working and serving her family in a way that edifies and builds them up, and it was really incredible to have a mom that really emulated this passage here, and again, like my mom did. Sometimes you have to get creative. And here's a true story about a mom who tried to do that and failed. I just like this story, so I'm going to throw it in. The U.S. government, the Department of the Interior, I believe, tracks migratory birds. It's going back to moms, believe me. And what they would do is they take a metal tag, a little bracelet thing, and they would put it around the ankle on the birds. And it would read, that the little tag reads Washington Biological Survey, but they couldn't put all of that on there, so they would abbreviate. It was WASH, period, Biol, period, and Serve, S-U-R-V, period. And they did this for years. But they changed the policy over one letter that they received from an Arkansas farmer. And the letter reads like this. I have it right here. Here's the copy. Dear sirs, I shot one of your crows. My wife followed the cooking instructions attached. She washed it, boiled it, and served it. It was the worst thing we ever ate. Now, this mom may not be the sharpest tool in the shed, but she's trying. She's getting an A for effort, and that's what good moms do. They try. They do whatever they can to serve their family. And again, my mom was like that. And the interesting thing about my mom is, I'm looking back at how much she worked, but she also met all of the expectations that people of that generation had of mothers. So our house was always clean. It wasn't a big house. Our house was like 900 square feet. But it was spotless. It was immaculate. Our laundry was always done. Food, very important in the 70s, on the table when Dad got home. And I'm looking back on that. See, at the time, I didn't know what was going on. I didn't have the acumen to process all of that or the perspective to process all of that. But my mom is working all day, and she's coming home. You know what she's doing? She's serving her family. She's working. I'm looking back on that now from my perspective. And here's a woman who is not idle, which is what the text talks about, from pretty much sunup to sundown. And I guarantee you at the time, I didn't appreciate it. Myself, my siblings, we took all of that for granted. But I look back on that now, and I think to myself, how blessed I was. How incredible it was to have a mom who was so willing to serve her family. And she never once, not a single time that I can remember, never once complained or asked to be appreciated or any of that stuff. Moms, I guess, probably are some of the most underappreciated people in society. But the great thing about moms is that most of them, you never know it because they love their family so much that it's worth it, And I heard a story. 2 small kids, Mother's Day. They present their mom with a potted set of flowers. And they give her the flowers, and of course she's making a big deal over it, and they don't look too happy. And she's like, what's wrong? And they said, well, these really aren't the flowers that we wanted to give you. And she says, well, what do you mean? She says, well, down at the flower store, there was a really big bouquet that we really wanted to get you, and it was really colorful and had so many wonderful flowers, and it had this really cool banner on it that said, rest in peace. Because you always talk about how you need rest and you want a little peace. And that's a good mom. Because she's serving her family. She serves her family with diligence. She guides her family with wisdom. And finally, she loves her children with passion. It says that her children rise up and call her blessed. The way that the text reads in the original language is a future tense. Because how many of us have children who can pick up on how blessed they are, when they're 6, 7, 8, 9, even teenagers? How many of our children really pick up on how blessed they are to have the family that they have, or to have the parents that they have, or whatnot? And it's not very many, but there's this future tense, and there's this sense of blessed, and it's the idea that at one day it just hits the children. Man, I was so lucky to have her as my mom. I am so grateful that I was in the family that I was in because, of how my mom was and just how incredible that was. And why is that? Why do they do that? Why all of a sudden, do they realize that? And I think it's more than the things that we've already talked about. It's more than the guidance, although I think that's a part of it. And it's more than a mom who serves her family, and I think that's a part of it. But I think there's this intangible quality about moms that just enables them to pour themselves into their children. And it's something that you can't fake. It's a labor of love. And when it's there, man, the children feel it. And it makes all the difference. A child that's growing up in a loving family with a mom who's like the one that's described here in Proverbs 31 truly is a blessed child. It's a child who's not having to work through all sorts of identity and existential issues, and they're not worried if they're valued. They know they're valued. They're encouraged. They're loved. And these are moms who later in life have children that come back to them and just say, Mom, I didn't appreciate it at the time, but I appreciate you so much now and everything that you did. And I hope that, if it's a woman, I hope that I can be that way with my children. If it's a son, then it's I hope I can marry someone like that. And again, there's value there. There's significance. There's appreciation. And that's not why moms do it. But that's what happens with moms who invest in their children in the way that this text is talking about. And unfortunately, and we probably have a few folks who grew up in homes like this as well. Unfortunately, not all moms are like this. And when it's bad, now there's all kinds of baggage and different things you have to work through. In fact, I was reading in a ministry magazine about a youth minister talking about a true story about a mom with a negative influence. And this is what he writes. He says, I remember on occasion way back when I was a youth minister, I met the mom of one of the boys. And right away, the mom started complaining about the boy right there in front of him. Mom got going on a long story about some trouble the boy had gotten into 5 years earlier. And when Mom left the room to answer the phone, this boy muttered under his breath, "She makes me sick." I didn't say anything, but I remember thinking, she makes me sick too. This mom does not love with passion. This mom, her children will not rise and call her blessed. because she's not a blessing. This mom functions as a curse, really, to her children. Fortunately, she's pretty much the exception. I really do think as a mom, to turn into this, you have to go against how God has wired us and how he's made us to be and how we're supposed to be as moms. Because I think most moms, even moms who are not necessarily Christian, because of how God wired us and how God created us, love their children and want what's best for them and try their best even to maybe live out some of these things. And so you ask the question, so what does it look like? What does a real mother look like? Well, check out the following clip, and it might give us a few ideas.
Oh, how I adore being a mother. Nothing else could bring me so much endless joy. From the first glimpse of your sweet, newborn face, my life became perfect. Right. Snap out of it. Let's get serious here. Unless you're a mother, you have no idea how much a child can change your life.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I was.
I don't think you're ever ready for motherhood, but yes, I think I was prepared as I could be.
Almost.
Well, I was only 20.
So I knew diddly squat.
Who is? It's just such a bizarre thing. You don't really know what you're getting into.
Not great.
I didn't sit down for 2 weeks.
So it was like 14 hours of pain.
More painful than you could ever even think of.
Hearing my son say something, talk about me in a respectful or a nice way when he didn't know I was hearing it.
Both of them getting married, or anytime my kids say, I can do it, Mom, I can do it.
That we lost our dad. Seeing them bond together and the strength that each of them had in each other is definitely my proudest moment.
My grandchildren.
It's ruby red bracelet.
Sometimes he calls me his sweet pea.
$5 in a card. And I thought that was really cute.
Little ornament that has little mice in it, and she thought was the adorableest thing she ever bought, and I've had it ever since.
He's just a miracle to me every day. Just him being here is just a gift.
Good children.
It would make me very happy when I dropped him off at daycare or school. That's really what made me smile. Like, here, take him. I'm gone now.
When I didn't have to wipe his butt anymore, that made me smile.
Just seeing my children happy.
And seeing them sleep.
When they have to go to the hospital for anything, or they get hurt real bad.
I think when they grow up and they leave, good tears are when your children do something so sweet or so tender. Bad tears are when they just exasperate you to the point where you cry.
Anything, absolutely anything can make a mother cry.
Seeing your kids struggle with anything makes you cry. Fun.
Clearly laundry.
Weight gain and laundry.
I guess washing clothes would be a lot of them when you have 27 shirts a week to do.
I don't know. I only have 2 kids. I don't know where it comes from.
I'll explain it when you're older.
You don't know everything.
I have plenty of friends. I'm not here to be your friend. I'm here to be your mother.
If so-and-so jumped off the George Washington Bridge, would you follow them?
I'm going to get the wooden spoon.
Love,
Love, discipline, and patience.
To be patient.
to be patient.
You have to listen.
Definitely have a sense of humor.
You have to be
Fun.
And at a certain point, you become a friend, but first a mother.
Every day is something new.
I've been surprised at how much patience you need.
I hope I can teach my kids to try anything and don't ever let fear hold them back.
It really does solidify the understanding that God loves us like a father loves a child, and then you have a child, and then you get that in a different way than you get it before you have a child.
Don't ever say, not my kid. Don't ever say that.
When he says, "You're the sweetest mom in the whole world," I said, "That's right, sweetheart. I absolutely am."
Did you catch it? What makes a great mom and what makes mothers so great? It's love. And again, it's more than the guidance and the service and, even pouring their lives into us. It's really that motivation that's behind it. And good moms have that. And that's why we celebrate moms. Because God, again, has wired us in a way to take these regular, average women like the ones that were up there. They seem just like the women that we know, our next door neighbors, our people we work with, people in the church, and create such a special relationship, and a relationship that he uses in so many ways.